All right, so get this. We're diving into a world of zombies and cheerleaders. But not just any cheerleader.
Sounds interesting.
We're talking Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP. But will it live up to the original? That's what we're here to find out. We've got reviews, articles, you name it, and we're going to break it all down for you. See if this remaster is worth the hype or if it's just, cashing in on nostalgia.
Well, it's pretty amazing how the original Lollipop Chainsaw from way back in 2012 snagged such a loyal following. It managed to blend humor, over-the-top gore, and stylish action. Like, it really hit that sweet spot.
Yeah, I totally remember when it first came out. It was wild. A cheerleader, but with a chainsaw, taking on zombies. Who thinks of that? But before we get lost in the remaster, let's rewind a bit for those who might have missed the original.
Okay.
Imagine you're dropped right into San Romero High School. Juliet Starling, your typical cheerleader, except, well, her after-school activity's a bit different. She's slicing and dicing through a zombie outbreak.
And let's not forget, she's got a killer soundtrack and a talking severed head as her sidekick. Severed body parts and style. What a combo.
You said it.
Yeah.
But seriously, the creative minds behind this game are what made it so special.
Oh, absolutely. The studio, Grasshopper Manufacture, is known for their, let's say, unique game design. But the real genius here is Goichi Suda, or as fans call him, SUAA51.
SUDA51, yeah, he's got a knack for those surreal kind of out-there games.
Exactly. Remember, No More Heroes, classic SUA51.
Oh, yeah. So what was he going for with Lollipop Chainsaw?
Well, he said once, and I quote, "We wanted to create something that would stick with players long after they finished the game." And honestly, with Lollipop Chainsaw, I think he nailed it.
Interesting. So what about the remaster?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. The remaster is doing even better than they expected, sales-wise. At least that's what Dragami Games is saying.
So people are definitely hungry for more of Juliet Starling. But is it all just nostalgia driving those sales? Or did they actually step up their game and make some serious improvements?
Well, one thing's for sure, the graphics and performance got a major upgrade.
Oh yeah, way smoother no matter what you're playing on.
Thank goodness. No more choppy gameplay. They've boosted the frame rates to a smooth 60 FPS on PS5 and Xbox Series XS. Even the Switch version holds its own at a solid 30 FPS.
And the resolution, forget about it. 4K on PS5 and Xbox Series X, 1440p on Series S. And they even made the visuals on the Switch look sharper, whether you're playing handheld or docked.
Wow, they really went above and beyond to optimize each version for different platforms. Haptic feedback on the PS5, quick resume on Xbox, and even touch controls for the mini games on Switch. Makes you want to double dip.
Oh, haptic feedback, that's something else. Talk about immersion. You actually feel the chainsaw vibrating as you're tearing through those zombies. Adds a whole new level of, I guess you could call it, visceral satisfaction.
Now that's what I call attention to detail. Not just prettying things up, but making the whole experience better. Exactly. And speaking of prettying things up, the visuals are top-notch, character designs are sharper, the event illustrations are eye-popping. They really brought the game's vibrant and slightly twisted world to life.
So it sounds like they kept the core gameplay that made the original so fun, that fast-paced hack-and-slash action, but gave it a fresh look. Do they actually add anything new to the gameplay, though?
Well, there's this new unlimited mode, which is pretty interesting.
Unlimited mode? Tell me more. I'm always down for new ways to slay zombies.
Well, it seems like it's for players who, maybe want a more chill experience. You can focus on the story and all the craziness without stressing about dying or resources. Good for new players or those who just want a more relaxed playthrough.
That's awesome. Opens the game up to more people. And didn't they also expand the tutorial and make navigating easier?
Yep, they did. So even if you're brand new, you won't be totally lost in a sea of zombie guts.
Awesome. So it sounds like they've really thought about how to make this remaster appeal to, well, everyone, really. Both hardcore fans and those who were just discovering Lollipop Chainsaw for the first time. But we can't talk about a game like this without talking about the combat, right? And from what I've heard, they made some pretty big changes.
Oh yeah, big time.
So spill the beans. What do they do to Juliet's signature moves?
Get ready for some serious chainsaw action. They've refined the whole combat experience. Every swing, every slash, it just feels powerful. Makes those zombie takedowns so satisfying.
Music to my ears. More satisfying zombie slaying is always a win. But you know me, I love a good combo move. Did they add any of those?
Oh, they did. Brace yourself, because they've added a whopping 198 different combo moves.
198. You're kidding me.
Nope, 198 ways to destroy those zombies.
That's insane. But I gotta admit, I'm kind of here for it. I love the variety.
They definitely wanted to give players more freedom and creative ways to take down those hordes.
Creative zombie destruction is my jam. But it's not all about button mashing, right? Tell me they improve the movement too, because nobody wants to be clumsily dodging around when there's a zombie horde on their tail.
Don't worry, they refined the movement controls too. You can dodge, weave, and position yourself like a pro for maximum zombie slaying. It's all about smooth, almost graceful combat.
Juliet,
Yeah.
the zombie-slaying ballerina. Love it. So it seems like they really put a lot of effort into making the combat system shine. But what do the critics think? Have the reviews been good to Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP?
Well, we have this early PS5 mini review, and it's pretty positive. The reviewer loves the updated visuals, the classic gameplay they kept, that unlimited mode we talked about, and even the expanded tutorial.
Sounds promising so far. What about the price? Did they jack it up for this remaster?
Actually, no. The reviewer says it's priced at $38.99. They seem to think it's a really good remaster overall. But they also kind of hint that hardcore fans, the ones who are hoping for something totally groundbreaking, might not be completely satisfied.
Yeah, remasters are tricky. Got to stay true to the original, but also appeal to new players. It's a tough balancing act. But what exactly might disappoint those die-hard fans, according to the reviewer?
They mentioned that some parts might feel a bit, well, dated compared to today's super polished, hyper-realistic games.
That makes sense. Gaming has come a long way since 2012.
Oh, absolutely. But sometimes those rough edges, those little quirks from a different time, they can be endearing. It's what gives a game character and makes it stand out.
It's like finding a vintage treasure. Classic, but with those little details that whisper, I'm from a different time.
You got it. But it does raise a good question. How much do those fancy new features really matter? Are gamers willing to overlook some dated elements if the game is truly unique and fun?
Now that's the million-dollar question. And it's something we'll be exploring more as we continue our deep dive into Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP. But now, we want to hear from you. Hit us up on social media and tell us what you think. Have you played the remaster? Are you excited to jump back into this cult classic? Let's get this conversation going.
It's kind of crazy to think about how much the gaming world has changed since Lollipop Chainsaw first came out back in 2012. Like back then, there was this whole different vibe, this willingness to just embrace the crazy and have fun with it.
Totally. Games weren't afraid to be a little cheesy, a little over the top. And Lollipop Chainsaw just went all out. And come on, a cheerleader with a chainsaw fighting zombies. And her boyfriend is a talking severed head. Pure B-movie gold.
Exactly. That's what made it so unique. It didn't take itself too seriously, didn't shy away from poking fun at all those zombie cliches we've seen a million times.
Like a breath of fresh air, especially these days when so many games are all about being super serious and realistic.
Right.
But hey, even with all the craziness, the original Lollipop Chainsaw actually had a pretty solid combat system. And like we said, they really amped it up for the remaster. But did they actually change the mechanics or just improve the graphics?
Oh, they went way beyond just a fresh coat of paint. The way they've refined the chainsaw combat is seriously impressive. Every swing, every slash, you feel it.
So it feels good to play.
Oh, yeah. It makes those zombie takedowns so visceral, so satisfying.
Okay, good to know. But is there any depth to it? Did they add anything to give players more options than just hacking and slashing?
Well, remember that expanded combo system we talked about?
Yeah.
198 different moves. It really encourages you to play around, find your own style, master the art of zombie slaying. It's almost like a dance, macabre ballet of death with a chainsaw.
Now that's a visual.
Yeah.
Juliet just twirling through a horde of zombies, leaving a trail of limbs behind her. Okay, but what about the sound design? Did they nail that over-the-top visceral feel we talked about?
Sound design is super important for immersion, and from what I've heard, they really nailed it. Think roaring chainsaws, splattering guts, that satisfying thud of a well-placed decapitation.
Right.
They really went all out to create a soundscape that matches the game's crazy energy.
Nice. You've sold me on the combat and sound. But what about the story? Did they add anything new to Juliet's journey, or is it the same as the original?
From what I've seen, it looks like they stuck pretty close to the original storyline.
So no big changes.
Could be good, could be bad. Depends what you're looking for.
True. Some players might be bummed if they were hoping for new twists or maybe some deeper character development.
Yeah, but for others, just revisiting that familiar story with all the crazy characters and the over-the-top dialogue, that might be exactly what they want. It's all about expectations.
I think you nailed it. Sometimes it's just fun to jump back into a world you love and appreciate it for what it is. But speaking of appreciating things, we got to talk about the soundtrack. The original Lollipop Chainsaw had an amazing soundtrack. Such a great mix of genres that perfectly captured the game's vibe.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything specific about the soundtrack for the remaster, but I'd be surprised if they didn't give it some love. Music is just so important for setting the mood.
Fingers crossed they remastered the original tracks, or maybe even added some new ones that fit that same high-energy style. But, we've talked a lot about the technical stuff and the gameplay. I think it's time to zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture. The return of Lollipop Chainsaw isn't just about one game. It's part of a bigger trend we're seeing in gaming.
Totally. We're seeing this resurgence of interest in games that were maybe considered niche or cult classics back in the day. It's like this wave of nostalgia washing over the gaming world.
Right. And I think there are a few reasons for that. Like, as we get older, we naturally gravitate towards things that remind us of simpler times, things that have a special place in our memories.
Makes sense.
Like those games we played when we were younger can really have a strong emotional pull.
Nostalgia is powerful stuff. It can take you back to a certain time and place, bring back all those good feelings.
Comfort food for the soul.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to it than just nostalgia. I think there's also a growing appreciation for games that were different, that weren't afraid to break the rules or do their own thing.
Oh, yeah, you're right. In a world of sequels and reboots, it's refreshing to revisit games that were truly unique and original. Games that weren't afraid to be weird, quirky, maybe even a little off-putting to some.
And Lollipop Chainsaw definitely fits that description. It embraces everything that's campy, over the top, and delightfully absurd. It's a reminder that games don't always have to be so serious.
Yeah.
They can be fun, silly, even a little crazy.
Well said. It's a reminder that games can be art too. A way to explore ideas, challenge norms, make us laugh, make us think. And Lollipop Chainsaw, with its cheerleader, with the chainsaw, and its zombie rock band, it does all of that.
Totally. It's a game that just puts a smile on your face and makes you wonder, how did they even come up with this? But there's another interesting thing about this whole remaster trend. It's not just about catering to older gamers who are feeling nostalgic. It's also about introducing these classics to a whole new generation of players who maybe missed them the first time around.
That's a good point. For a lot of younger gamers, Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP might be their first experience with this kind of unique and unconventional gameplay.
It's like opening a door to a whole new world of gaming experiences. A world where chainsaw-wielding cheerleaders battle zombies with a killer soundtrack, where severed heads crack jokes, and nothing is too crazy or over the top.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire some of those younger players to check out other games that are a little different, games that push boundaries and challenge conventions.
Yes. It's all about expanding horizons and embracing the weirdness. But enough from us. We want to hear from you. Have you played Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP? What are your thoughts? Did it live up to the hype? Did it capture that magic from the original? Hit us up on social media and share your thoughts. We'll be back after a quick break with even more Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP insights. We're back. And, before we wrap things up, we should probably talk about something we mentioned earlier. That whole thing about some parts of the game maybe feeling a little dated. I mean, it's been over a decade since the original came out, and gaming has changed a lot since 2012. What might have been cool back then could feel kind of rough around the edges now.
Yeah, that's true. Gaming has come a long way, and some players might feel like Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP, well, maybe it hasn't aged as well as other games. But I think there's another way to look at it. Sometimes those rough edges, those little quirks from a different era, they can actually add to a game's charm.
Right. It's like watching an old movie from the 80s.
Yeah.
The special effects might not be as good as today's movies, but it doesn't mean the movie isn't fun to watch. In fact, those imperfections can make it even better. Give it that nostalgic feel.
Exactly. Just like those old school video games we were talking about, there's something charming about their simplicity. Those pixelated graphics, the sometimes clunky controls, it takes you back.
And that's what makes Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP so interesting. It's a product of its time, and it owns it. It's not trying to be something it's not. It's a game that loves its own craziness, its own over-the-top style. But what do you think about those dated elements? Do they take away from the experience, or do they actually add to the game's unique appeal?
It really depends on the person. Some gamers, they want the best graphics, the newest gameplay mechanics, those super realistic worlds, and for them, Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP might not be their cup of tea. But for those who love that retro feel, who like games that are different, who want something crazy and over the top, this remaster might be perfect.
So it's all about knowing what you want from a game. And maybe being open to something a little different. Because sometimes it's those quirky, flawed, unconventional games that you remember the most. The ones that make you go, wow, I've never played anything like that before.
Totally. Not every game needs to be a masterpiece to be fun. Sometimes it's the rough around the edges games, the ones that break the rules that really stick with you.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about the technical side of Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP.
Yeah.
The gameplay changes, the graphics, the things that might not be so great. But I think the most important thing about this remaster is what it stands for.
What do you mean?
I think it's about celebrating being different, not taking things too seriously, embracing the weird. Lollipop Chainsaw is a game that doesn't care about conventions and loves being crazy and funny.
Yeah.
And in a world that can feel kind of predictable and, well, kind of the same.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
That's a great way to put it. It reminds us that games can be art, a way to explore new ideas and feelings, to challenge what's normal, to make people think. And Lollipop Chainsaw does all that. It's a game that makes you smile, that makes you laugh, that makes you wonder what were they thinking. And sometimes that's all you need from a game.
You got it. It's about pure fun. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP, what's the final verdict? Is it a must-buy for everyone? Maybe not. But for those looking for something different, something that breaks the mold, something that's unapologetically weird and fun, this remaster might be just what they're looking for.
I agree. It's a game that dares to be different, that celebrates the joy of pure zombie-slaying fun. And at the end of the day, isn't that what gaming is all about? Escaping into new worlds, seeing things from different perspectives, letting loose a little. Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP lets you do all of that.
So there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the world of Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP. We hope you enjoyed it. Maybe we even convinced you to give it a try. Until next time, keep on gaming, stay curious, and don't be afraid to embrace the weird.